The weather forecast that morning had been unusually specific. -6 degrees Celsius across London. Winds gusting up to 30 miles per hour. The kind of cold that finds every gap in your clothing, every exposed patch of skin. The kind of cold that makes the morning news anchors remind viewers to check on elderly neighbours and bring pets inside. The coldest February day in over a decade, they said. Stay indoors if possible. Prince William had checked the forecast twice that morning. Once while getting dressed, once before leaving Kensington Palace. His schedule was packed. 3 meetings, 2 site visits, 1 engagement that couldn't be rescheduled. Charlotte's day was supposed to be simpler. Morning lessons at the palace. Afternoon with her tutor, safe, warm, inside. That was the plan. But before we continue, make sure you hit subscribe. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Now, back to what happened that afternoon. The call came at 2:30. William was reviewing briefing documents in his private office when his phone vibrated. Private line. The one reserved for family and senior security. He picked up immediately. "Your Royal Highness, this is Protection Command." The voice was professional, but tight, controlled. "We have a situation with Princess Charlotte." William's hand stopped mid-motion. "What kind of situation?" "She's safe, sir, but we think you should come. Now." No explanation, no details, just that tone, the one that meant something had gone seriously wrong. He was moving before the call ended, down the corridor, past startled staff. Through doors he barely registered opening, and his security detail fell into step behind him. Silent questions on their faces. They knew better than to ask. William's expression told them everything they needed to know. The gardens behind the palace stretched across 12 acres. Manicured lawns, ancient oak trees, private paths where the family could walk without cameras following their every step. William had played there as a child. Charlotte loved it there. Safe space. Protected space. He'd been told she was near the East Terrace, past the Rose Garden, beyond the hedge maze. The cold hit him the moment he stepped outside. Sharp, immediate, biting through his suit jacket like it wasn't there. He should have grabbed his coat. Didn't matter now. He walked faster. His breath came out in visible clouds. The grass crunched under his feet. Frost stiffened despite the afternoon hour. The bare tree branches clicked against each other in the wind. Every sound felt too loud, too clear in the frozen air. Then he saw her. Charlotte sat on a stone bench near the old fountain. The fountain hadn't run in years, dry and weathered. She was small against the grey stone. Too small. Her burgundy school uniform stood out against the white landscape. No coat, no jacket, nothing but the thin blazer and skirt she'd worn that morning. Her arms were wrapped around herself. Shoulders hunched forward. She was shaking. William ran. "Charlotte!" She looked up, tried to smile. Her lips were pale, almost blue. The smile lasted less than a second before her face crumpled and she looked away. Embarrassed. Ashamed. He reached her in seconds, dropped to one knee in front of the bench. His hands went to her arms automatically, checking. Or her skin was ice cold through the thin fabric. She was trembling, not just shivering, full body tremors she couldn't control. "Pepper, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Shh, don't apologize." He was already removing his suit jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders. Too big, swallowing her, didn't matter. "How long have you been out here?" "I don't know, not long." Her teeth chattered. She tried to stop it, pressed her lips together. Couldn't. William looked at her hands. Red. Raw. She'd been clenching them, trying to keep warm. Her fingers wouldn't straighten properly when she tried to grip his jacket closed. "Can you stand?" "Yes, I think." He didn't wait for her to finish. Scooped her up. She weighed nothing. When had she gotten so light? She buried her face against his shoulder. He felt her shaking intensify. I've got you. You're safe now. A protection officer appeared from the direction of the palace. Young, maybe 25. Face pale. William recognized him. Patterson, relatively new to Charlotte's detail. Sir, I can explain. Not now. William's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. Get inside, my office. 10 minutes. He didn't wait for a response. Carried Charlotte back toward the palace. She'd stopped trying to talk, just pressed closer, drawing what warmth she could from his body. Staff members scattered as he walked through the halls. He registered their shocked faces peripherally. Didn't care. His focus was Charlotte, getting her warm, making sure she was okay. His private sitting room was closest, small, comfortable, a fireplace that actually worked. He set Charlotte down on the sofa closest to the hearth. Someone had lit the fire earlier. Oh, thank God. Stay right here. He grabbed 2 blankets from the cupboard, heavy wool ones kept for exactly this purpose. Wrapped them around her. Then another. She disappeared into them, only her face visible. Still pale, still shaking. William knelt in front of her again, took her hands in his, started rubbing them gently, trying to restore circulation. Her fingers were stiff, unresponsive. Tell me what happened. Charlotte bit her lip. Looked at the fire instead of him. It was my fault. I forgot my coat. That's not what I asked. Mrs. Pemberton said I needed to wait outside, that I was being too loud during quiet study time. She said 15 minutes. I thought I'd be fine without my coat for just 15 minutes. William's hands stilled. Mrs. Pemberton sent you outside, in this weather, for being too loud? I was laughing. George told a joke and I laughed too loud. She said I was disrupting the other students. What other students? You have private lessons. Charlotte went quiet. Her eyes filled. She blinked rapidly. William felt something cold settle in his chest. Not the weather kind of cold. The kind that came with understanding, with seeing a pattern emerge from scattered pieces. Charlotte, look at me. She did, reluctantly. How long were you really outside? I don't know, Papa. I tried to count, but I lost track. I came in once because my hands hurt, but she sent me back out. Said 15 minutes wasn't up yet, that I needed to learn to be tougher, that I was being soft. William's jaw tightened. He kept his voice level, calm. When did you go outside? After lunch, maybe 1 o'clock? It was now approaching 3 o'clock. 2 hours. And she'd been outside in -6-degree weather for 2 hours. He stood, walked to the door, opened it. 3 staff members waited outside. They'd been hovering, knowing something was wrong, but not daring to intrude. Find Mrs. Pemberton. Bring her to my office. Now. He looked at the youngest staff member. Get Dr. Lawson. Tell him it's urgent. They scattered. William returned to Charlotte, sat beside her on the sofa, put his arm around her. She leaned against him immediately, still shaking but less violently now. The warmth was helping. You did nothing wrong, he said quietly. Do you understand me? Nothing. But I was loud. I don't care. Being loud doesn't mean you deserve to freeze outside. Charlotte, you could have been seriously hurt. She was silent for a moment. Then, very quietly, she says I need to toughen up a lot, and that I'm too sensitive. That the other children don't complain about things like I do. What other children? Charlotte's education was private, individual tutors, small group settings at most. And since when had complaints about actual cold become sensitivity? Has this happened before? Charlotte didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. How many times? I don't know. Maybe 5, 6. Not always outside. Sometimes she just makes me stand in the corridor. Or in the music room with the windows open. She says fresh air builds character. William felt his hands curl into fists. He consciously relaxed them. Charlotte was watching him, worried, trying to read his expression. He schooled his features. Why didn't you tell me? Or your mother? I didn't want to be a tattletale, and I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I do need to be tougher. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't want to disappoint you. Something in William's chest cracked. He pulled her closer. You could never disappoint me. Never. Do you hear me? She nodded against his shoulder. The door opened. Dr. Lawson entered. Mid-50s, calm demeanor, the palace physician who'd treated the family for years. He took one look at Charlotte and his expression sharpened. How long was she exposed? Approximately 2 hours, -6 degrees, wind. Dr. Lawson moved quickly but gently, checked Charlotte's hands, her feet, looked at her lips and fingernails, asked her questions in a quiet voice. Could she feel this? What about this? Any numbness? Any burning sensation? William watched. Charlotte answered the doctor's questions dutifully. She was being brave, polite, his brave girl, who'd been suffering for weeks and said nothing because she thought she was being too sensitive. Early stages, Dr. Lawson said finally. She's young, healthy. She'll recover. But another hour. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. She needs to stay warm. Hot liquids. No hot bath, though. Temperature needs to rise gradually. I'll check her again in a few hours. Thank you. Dr. Lawson hesitated at the door. Sir, if I may, 2 hours in these conditions for a child her age. That's not supervision. That's negligence. I know. The doctor left. William pulled out his phone, sent a text to Kate. Need you at KP. Now. Charlotte's fine, but something's happened. The response came within seconds. On my way. A knock at the door. Patterson appeared. Behind him, a woman in her late 50s. Grey hair pulled back severely. A pressed grey suit. Mrs. Pemberton. Charlotte's tutor for the past 4 months. Hired with excellent references. Decades of experience with prestigious families. Charlotte tensed beside him. Her hand gripped his. William stood. Mrs. Pemberton, thank you for coming so quickly. She smiled. Professional. Warm. Of course, Your Royal Highness. Is everything all right? I heard there was some concern about Princess Charlotte. I'd like you to tell me about this afternoon's lesson. This afternoon? Oh, well, it was quite standard. Mathematics, then English comprehension. Charlotte did wonderfully. She's such a bright child. William kept his voice neutral. And after lessons? I believe she had free time. I'd finished with her around 12:30. She mentioned wanting to explore the gardens. In -6-degree weather. Mrs. M. Pemberton's smile faltered. Just slightly. Well, children do love the outdoors. I'm sure she was dressed appropriately. She wasn't. She had no coat. Oh dear, I did mention to her that it was cold. But you know how children are. They don't always listen. William waited. Let the silence stretch. An old technique. People felt compelled to fill silence. Often said more than they intended. Mrs. Pemberton shifted her weight. Touched her necklace. I'm sure it was just a momentary lapse in judgment. Charlotte can be rather impulsive sometimes. Can she? Children her age often are. It's part of development, really. Learning consequences. Natural consequences are sometimes the best teachers, don't you think? Natural consequences. William's voice remained level, controlled. Like hypothermia. The colour drained from Mrs. Pemberton's face. I'm sorry. Charlotte has these early signs of hypothermia from being outside for 2 hours, because you sent her out there. I'm afraid there's been some misunderstanding. I would never. She told me everything. Mrs. Pemberton's eyes flickered to Charlotte. Charlotte had pulled the blankets tighter around herself. She looked small, vulnerable. Your Royal Highness, children sometimes exaggerate, or misremember. I'm sure whatever Charlotte said, she didn't mean to. Are you calling my daughter a liar? The question hung in the air. Dangerous. Mrs. Pemberton seemed to realize she was on thin ice. No, of course not. But perhaps she misunderstood. You see, I do occasionally suggest the children take short walks for focus. Fresh air can be quite beneficial. If Charlotte stayed out longer than suggested, that would be her choice, wouldn't it? The children, plural. Charlotte has individual lessons. Another pause, barely noticeable. But William noticed. A figure of speech. I've taught many children over the years. And how many of those children did you send outside in freezing weather as punishment? Punishment? No, no. It's not punishment. It's discipline. There's a difference. These children, they're being prepared for public life. They need to be resilient, strong. They can't fall apart at every little discomfort. William thought he understood what he was hearing now. What this was really about. What Mrs. Pemberton didn't know yet was that her explanations were digging her grave deeper with every word. Discipline, William repeated. His voice stayed calm. That dangerous kind of calm. You believe leaving an 8-year-old outside in freezing temperatures for 2 hours is discipline? Well, when you phrase it like that, how would you phrase it? Mrs. Pemberton's hand went to her necklace again. Third time. She twisted it between her fingers. Your Royal Highness, I have over 30 years of experience educating children from prominent families. I understand what's required to prepare them for public life. Sometimes that means being firm, setting boundaries, not coddling them. Coddling? William let the word sit there. Is that what you think providing a coat in -6-degree weather is? Coddling? I think these children need to learn that the world won't always accommodate their comfort, that sometimes they need to endure discomfort without complaint. Behind William, Charlotte made a small sound, and he glanced back. She'd pulled the blankets over her head, only her eyes visible. She looked terrified, not of the cold anymore, of this conversation, of what might happen. William turned back to Mrs. Pemberton. Charlotte mentioned this has happened before, multiple times. I'm sure she's confused. Children often conflate different events. 5 or 6 times, that's what she said. Sometimes outside, sometimes in corridors with windows open. Always. When you decided she was being too soft, too sensitive, is she confused about that as well? Mrs. Pemberton's jaw tightened. For the first time, her pleasant mask slipped. Just for a second, but William saw it. Annoyance, irritation at being questioned. Your Royal Highness, I mean no disrespect, but Charlotte is a delightful child who could benefit from a firmer hand. She's easily distracted and overly emotional. She cries when corrected. She needs to develop resilience before she faces real public scrutiny. She's 8 years old. Precisely, which is when habits form, when character is built. If we don't address these tendencies now. The door opened. Kate walked in. She took in the scene instantly. Charlotte wrapped in blankets by the fire. William standing rigid. A woman she didn't recognize looking defensive. Kate's expression shifted. The public smile disappeared, replaced by something sharper. What's going on? William turned. Charlotte was left outside for 2 hours. In this weather, no coat. Kate's eyes went to Charlotte, then back to the woman. Who are you? Mrs. Pemberton. I'm Princess Charlotte's tutor. I remember now. You started in October. Kate moved past her, went straight to Charlotte. Knelt beside the sofa, pulled back the blankets gently to see her daughter's face. Sweetheart, are you all right? Charlotte nodded. Her eyes were red. Kate examined her hands, her face. The way William had. Maternal assessment. Quick, thorough. When she stood and turned back to Mrs. Pemberton, her expression had gone cold. 2 hours. You left my daughter outside for 2 hours. There's been some misunderstanding. Was she outside or not? Well, yes, but for 2 hours? Mrs. Pemberton hesitated. I may have lost track of time. I was preparing materials for tomorrow's lesson. You lost track of time. Kate's voice was dangerously quiet. William recognized that tone. He'd heard it maybe 3 times in their entire marriage. It meant Kate was beyond anger, past it, into something colder. For 2 hours, while a child was freezing outside. It wasn't my intention. I don't care about your intention. I care about what you did. Mrs. Pemberton was just explaining her teaching philosophy, William said. His tone made it clear what he thought of that philosophy. About building resilience, not coddling. Kate's eyes narrowed. Is that right? I understand this looks concerning, Mrs. Pemberton tried again, but I assure you, my methods have been proven effective over decades of... Your methods? Kate took a step closer. Tell me, these methods of yours, how often have you used them on Charlotte? I wouldn't characterize them as methods exactly, more like techniques for encouraging... How many times? Silence. How many times have you sent my daughter outside as punishment? It's not punishment, it's... How many times? Mrs. Pemberton's mouth opened, closed. She looked at William, back to Kate. Realized neither of them was going to let this go. I don't keep a record of every disciplinary action, but when a child needs correction, I correct them. That's my job. Your job, Kate said slowly, is to educate my daughter, not to traumatize her. I hardly think... She has signs of hypothermia. Do you understand what that means? What could have happened? Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. She's 8, Kate's voice rose. First time. She took a breath, steadied herself. She's 8 years old. She's not a soldier. She's not training for Arctic survival. She's a child who deserves to be safe while learning. William watched Mrs. Pemberton's expression. The mask was cracking further. Beneath it, he saw something he recognized. A righteous certainty. The belief that she knew better. That these soft modern parents didn't understand what real education required. She'd done this before. Not just with Charlotte, with other children, other families. And she genuinely believed she was right. That realization changed everything. I'd like to see your records, William said quietly. Mrs. Pemberton blinked. I'm sorry? Your daily records, lesson plans, notes on Charlotte's progress. You do keep those? Well, yes, of course, but bring them here, now. Your Royal Highness, I'm not sure that wasn't a request. Mrs. Pemberton's face flushed. For a moment, William thought she might refuse. Push back. But she'd spent 30 years working with powerful families. She knew when she'd lost ground. They're in the schoolroom, and I'll retrieve them. Patterson, William called. The protection officer appeared at the door. Escort Mrs. Pemberton to retrieve her records. Don't let her out of your sight. Patterson nodded. Mrs. Pemberton opened her mouth, closed it, walked out stiffly. Patterson followed. As soon as the door closed, Kate sat beside Charlotte, pulled her close. Charlotte clung to her mother, started crying, quiet sobs she'd been holding back. It's okay. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you. Kate looked at William over Charlotte's head, mouthed 2 words, security footage. William nodded, already thinking the same thing. He pulled out his phone, texted the head of security. Need all footage from East Gardens today. Last 2 hours. Also any footage from past 4 weeks, showing Princess Charlotte and Mrs. Pemberton. The reply came within 30 seconds. On it. Where do you want to review? My office. 20 minutes. William pocketed his phone, looked at his wife and daughter. Kate was whispering reassurances. Charlotte had stopped shaking. The colour was slowly returning to her face. But the fear was still there. In her eyes, in the way she held on to Kate like she might disappear. He thought about Mrs. Pemberton's words, building character, not coddling, creating resilience. What she'd actually created was fear. Charlotte, he said gently. She looked up. I need to ask you something. and I need you to be completely honest. Can you do that?" She nodded. "Did Mrs. Pemberton ever hurt you? Physically?" Charlotte shook her head quickly. "No, she never hit me or anything. She gets angry when I cry, or when I say I'm cold or tired or hungry. And she says those are excuses, that I need to learn to push through discomfort. When you're cold, you're supposed to get warm. When you're hungry, you're supposed to eat. Those aren't excuses. Those are needs. She says royals don't have the luxury of needs, that we have duties." William felt Kate tense beside him. "Did she say anything else?" Kate asked. Her voice was controlled. "Barely." Charlotte bit her lip, thinking. "She said I'm too much like my mother, that you're too soft with us, that someone needs to prepare us properly, or we'll embarrass the family." Kate's expression went very still, very cold. William saw her hand clench, watched her force it to relax. She was holding herself together through sheer will. "Anything else?" William prompted. "She said George is better, tougher, that he doesn't complain, and that I should be more like him." Charlotte's voice got smaller. "Is that true, Papa? Am I too soft?" "No." William said it firmly, definitively. "George is different. You're different. Louis is different. That's good. That's how it should be. And there's nothing wrong with feeling cold when it's freezing outside. That's called being human." A knock at the door. Patterson returned with Mrs. Pemberton. She carried a leather folder, handed it to William without meeting his eyes. He opened it, scanned the pages, daily lesson plans, progress notes, behavioral observations. Most of it was standard: mathematics, English, history, French. Normal curriculum for Charlotte's age, but in the margins, small notes. Too easily distracted. Cried during criticism, needs toughening. Complained of cold, sent outside for 10 minutes to build resilience. They laughed during quiet time, corrected with outdoor reflection period. William read through 3 weeks of entries. The pattern was clear. Any behavior Mrs. Pemberton deemed too soft, too sensitive, too emotional resulted in correction, usually involving discomfort, cold, hunger, isolation. He passed the folder to Kate, watched her face as she read. "Outdoor reflection period," Kate read aloud. "That's what you call leaving a child outside in winter. Reflection." Mrs. Pemberton lifted her chin. "Children need consequences, structure, discipline, especially children who will face public scrutiny their entire lives." "They need safety," Kate said. "They need kindness. They need someone who won't punish them for having feelings. Feelings don't serve them in public life. Control does. Discipline does. They're children. They're future representatives of the crown." What William discovered next would change everything. But first, if you're enjoying this story, drop a like and let us know in the comments. Would you have confronted the tutor immediately or gathered more evidence first? Now, here's what the security footage revealed. William's phone buzzed. Text from security. "Footage ready. You're going to want to see this." "Kate, stay with Charlotte. I'll be back shortly." He looked at Mrs. Pemberton. "You're coming with me." They walked in silence, down corridors, past staff who tried not to stare, to William's private office. Larger than the sitting room, desk, chairs, and a monitor where security footage could be reviewed. The head of security was waiting, Commander James Walsh, 20-year veteran. In former military police, he'd seen everything, but his expression now was grim. "Sir, we pulled the footage you requested. Today's is concerning, but the historical footage from the past 4 weeks." He paused. "You need to see for yourself." Walsh pressed play. The screen showed the East Gardens. Date stamp: today. Timestamp: 1:15 in the afternoon. Charlotte walked into frame. No coat. She sat on the stone bench, looked back toward the palace. Waiting. 3 minutes passed. 5. 10. She started rubbing her arms. 15 minutes. She stood, walked a few steps toward the palace, stopped, returned to the bench, sat. William watched the timestamp tick forward. 1:30, 1:45, 2 o'clock. At 2:15, Charlotte stood again, walked slowly toward the palace, moving stiffly now, cold affecting her mobility, and she disappeared from frame. Walsh switched angles, camera covering the palace entrance. Charlotte appeared, reached for the door. Mrs. Pemberton came out, spoke to Charlotte, pointed back toward the gardens. Charlotte's shoulders slumped. She said something, shook her head. Mrs. Pemberton's expression hardened. She pointed again, more firmly. Charlotte turned around, walked back toward the gardens. Slower, head down. Walsh froze the image. The timestamp shows she was initially outside from 1:17 until 2:16. 59 minutes. Mrs. Pemberton sent her back out at 2:17. Protection team found her at 2:38. That's an additional 21 minutes. Total outdoor exposure, 1 hour and 21 minutes. She told me 2 hours, William said. Charlotte went out once before lunch. Briefly. And 10 minutes around noon. She may have conflated the times. Mrs. Pemberton had gone very pale. I didn't realize it had been that long. Time got away from me. Keep watching, Walsh said grimly. He switched to archived footage. Last week, Charlotte in a corridor, standing still, facing the wall, like a punishment children get in old movies. Mrs. Pemberton, visible at the end of the hall, working at a desk, not watching Charlotte. Timestamp showed Charlotte stood there for 42 minutes. Another clip. 2 weeks ago, Charlotte in the music room, windows open, she sat at a desk. Shivering, no jumper. Mrs. Pemberton entered frame periodically, never closed the windows. Another clip. 3 weeks ago, Charlotte crying in the schoolroom, Mrs. Pemberton standing over her, speaking, Charlotte nodding, wiping her eyes. Mrs. Pemberton pointed to the door. Charlotte left. Camera showed her standing in the cold corridor for 30 minutes. Walsh stopped as the footage. There are 11 documented incidents over 4 weeks, all following the same pattern. Charlotte displays emotion or makes a complaint. Mrs. Pemberton sends her somewhere uncomfortable, leaves her there for extended periods. William couldn't speak. He stared at the frozen image on the screen. His daughter, standing alone, cold, trying to be brave. Your Royal Highness, Mrs. Pemberton said. Her voice shook now. I never intended harm. I was trying to help, to prepare her. These children, they need... Get out. Please, if you just let me explain. Get out of my sight. Mrs. Pemberton backed toward the door. Her professional composure completely shattered. I've dedicated my life to educating children. I've helped dozens of families. You terrorized my daughter. William's voice was deadly quiet. You took a happy, confident child and made her afraid, made her question herself, made her think she was weak for feeling cold, for having emotions, for being human. I was doing my job. Your job was to teach her, not to break her. Walsh stepped forward, gestured to Patterson, who'd been standing outside. Escort Mrs. Pemberton of the premises. She's not to have any contact with the children. Any of them. You can't just dismiss me, Mrs. Pemberton protested. I have a contract. You're suspended, William said, effective immediately, pending formal investigation. If you try to contact Charlotte or any member of this family, I'll have you charged with child endangerment. But do you understand? Mrs. Pemberton's mouth opened, closed. She looked at Walsh, at Patterson, back to William, saw no sympathy anywhere. Patterson took her elbow. Ma'am, let's go. They left. The door closed. William stood in the sudden silence, staring at the frozen footage on the screen. Charlotte, small and alone, and cold. Walsh spoke quietly. Sir, I need to ask, Did you want us to involve the police? William thought about it. Police meant public, meant media, meant Charlotte's suffering splashed across headlines, meant questions she'd have to answer, interviews, statements, reliving it over and over. Not yet. I want a full internal investigation first. Every detail documented. Every staff member who might have seen something interviewed. If we find evidence of actual criminal behavior, then we'll decide. Understood. And I'll begin immediately. How did nobody notice? William asked, not really expecting an answer. 4 weeks, 11 incidents. How did nobody see this? Walsh hesitated. Sir, I've been reviewing staff reports. There were concerns, small things. Other staff noticed Charlotte seemed subdued, quieter than usual. But Mrs. Pemberton had excellent references, decades of experience. Nobody wanted to question her methods. They should have. Yes, sir, they should have. William walked back to the sitting room. Kate looked up when he entered, read his expression. That bad? Worse, he told her. All of it. The footage, the timeline, the 11 documented incidents. Kate's face went from pale to flushed to pale again. Charlotte had fallen asleep on the sofa, exhausted, still wrapped in blankets. 11 times, Kate said, each word carefully controlled. 11 times someone hurt our daughter, and we didn't know. We know now. Do we? Do we really? How many times weren't caught on camera? How many times did she suffer, and we were just elsewhere, doing our duties, our engagements, while someone terrorized our child? Kate, she stopped telling us things, William. Over the past month, we thought she was growing up, getting more independent. She wasn't. She was scared. She was being taught that her feelings didn't matter, that needing things made her weak. William had no answer for that, because Kate was right. They'd missed it, both of them. Too busy, too trusting, too certain that someone with 30 years of experience and excellent references would treat their daughter with basic human decency. What do we do? Kate asked quietly. We make sure it never happens again. Over the next 24 hours, the investigation moved with quiet efficiency. Walsh interviewed every staff member who'd had contact with Charlotte during the past month. Teachers, protection officers, household staff, palace assistants. The picture that emerged was damning. Multiple people had noticed changes in Charlotte. Her cheerfulness dimming, her reluctance to go to lessons. Small comments she'd made that, individually, seemed innocent. Together, they painted a clear pattern. One protection officer reported Charlotte had asked him once how long someone could stay outside in the cold before it became dangerous. He'd thought it was curiosity, a child's random question. Now he understood. A housemaid mentioned finding Charlotte sitting alone in unheated corridors multiple times. She always near the schoolroom, always during lesson hours. She'd assumed Charlotte was in trouble. Normal child discipline. Didn't think to question it. The palace librarian remembered Charlotte asking about books on stoicism, on emotional control, on being brave. Unusual reading for an 8-year-old. But Charlotte was bright, advanced. The librarian had helped her find appropriate books and thought nothing more of it. Nobody had connected the dots, not until it was too late. Walsh compiled everything into a formal report, delivered it to William on the second day. 23 pages, detailed, thorough, devastating. William read it twice. The second time with Kate beside him. They sat in his office, in silence, absorbing it. She tried to tell us, Kate said finally. In her way. All those questions about being brave, about not complaining. We thought she was just growing up, becoming more mature. We should have known. How? She was taught to hide it. Mrs. Pemberton explicitly told her not to tell us. That we were too soft, that we'd make her weak if we coddled her. William put down the report, looked at Kate. I want her gone, not just suspended, Terminated. Immediately. And I want her references withdrawn. I want every family she's worked for contacted and informed. She'll claim unfair dismissal. Let her. We have 11 incidents on camera, 23 pages of documented abuse. Let her try to defend that in court. Kate nodded. Then, it's not enough. What do you mean? Firing her isn't enough. The system failed, William. Multiple people saw warning signs and did nothing. We need to change how we do this, how we hire, how we supervise, how we protect them. She was right. Again. William spent the next 3 days working with Walsh, with palace administration, with child safety experts. They built a new protocol, comprehensive, detailed, designed to ensure this never happened again. Mandatory background checks, not just references, actual investigations, speaking to families, observing interactions before hiring, supervision. No tutor or caregiver would be alone with the children without regular check-ins. Protection officers would be trained to watch for concerning patterns, to speak up if something felt wrong. Documentation, every lesson plan reviewed, every disciplinary action recorded and justified, monthly reports required, and most importantly, the children themselves would be taught that they had a voice, that adults in authority could be wrong, and that if something felt wrong, it probably was. That telling their parents wasn't tattling, it was protecting themselves. Charlotte would never again think she was being too sensitive for feeling cold. We're approaching the moment that changed how the palace protects its youngest members. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. We share stories like this daily. Here's what happened when William implemented the changes. Mrs. Pemberton's formal dismissal came on the 4th day. William handled it personally. No meeting, no discussion. A letter delivered by palace legal team. Terminated for gross misconduct. Contract void. References withdrawn. Every family she'd ever worked for would receive notification of her dismissal and the reasons why. She tried to fight it, sent letters, made threats, hired a solicitor. The palace legal team sent her the investigation report, the footage, the documented incidents. Her solicitor advised her to accept the dismissal quietly. She did. But William wasn't finished. He contacted every family on her reference list personally. Some had employed her decades ago, others more recently. He told them what happened. Not to humiliate Mrs. Pemberton, to protect other children. 3 families reported similar concerns during her employment with them. Nothing as severe as Charlotte's situation, but patterns. Comments about toughening up children, unusual punishments, children becoming withdrawn. Nobody had said anything publicly. She'd had good results. The children learned, performed well, seemed well behaved. Nobody had asked what price those children paid for that behavior. William made sure that changed, quietly, and through private channels, warnings shared among families who employed private tutors, a case study in what to watch for, how to prevent it. Mrs. Pemberton would never work with children again, not if William had anything to say about it. Charlotte's recovery took longer. The physical effects faded quickly. Dr. Lawson confirmed no lasting damage. Her hands recovered full sensation. The early hypothermia symptoms resolved. Physically, she was fine within days. Emotionally, was different. She was quieter, more hesitant, second-guessed herself constantly, asked permission for things she'd never questioned before. Could she get a snack? Could she go to her room? Could she sit by the fire? Kate noticed it first, the way Charlotte tensed when anyone corrected her, the way she apologized for everything, for laughing too loud, for asking questions, for being cold or tired or hungry. Basic needs had become things she apologized for. They brought in Dr. Sarah Chen, child psychologist, specialist in trauma recovery. She met with Charlotte 3 times a week, gentle sessions, play therapy, art therapy, giving Charlotte space to process what happened. She's internalizing the blame, Dr. Chen explained after the third session. Mrs. Pemberton taught her that her needs were weaknesses. That feeling, things made her bad. That's going to take time to unlearn. How much time? Kate asked. Months, maybe longer. Children are resilient, but this was sustained. 4 weeks of consistent messaging that she was too soft, too sensitive. Wrong for being herself. That leaves marks. William felt that cold settle in his chest again, the kind that had nothing to do with weather. What do we do? Keep doing what you're doing, consistent reassurance. Let her feel things without judgment. Encourage her to express needs. Don't dismiss her feelings as small or unimportant. Show her that being human isn't weakness. They did. Both of them. Every day. When Charlotte said she was cold, they didn't just hand her a jumper. They validated it. It is cold. Thank you for telling me. Let's get you warm. When she cried, they didn't tell her to be brave. They held her. It's okay to be sad. You don't have to hide it. When she expressed needs, they celebrated it. I'm so glad you told me you were hungry. That's exactly what you should do. Slowly, carefully, they helped her rebuild what Mrs. Pemberton had tried to break. George and Louis helped too. Without fully understanding why, they'd been told Charlotte had a difficult teacher who'd been mean to her. That was enough. George brought Charlotte his favourite books, read to her, made her laugh with silly voices. Louis drew her pictures, brought her his stuffed animals, stayed close when she seemed sad. Children understanding children, siblings protecting siblings. 6 weeks after that day in the gardens, Charlotte came to William's office, knocked softly. Come in. She entered, stood by the door, hesitant. What's up, darling? I wanted to ask, could I maybe try lessons again? With a new teacher? William set down his pen, gave her his full attention. You're ready? I think so. Dr. Chen says I'm doing really well, and I miss learning. I miss school things. We can arrange that. But Charlotte, I need you to promise me something. What? If the new teacher ever makes you uncomfortable, if they ever make you feel bad for having needs or feelings, if anything ever feels wrong, you tell me immediately. No matter what they say, no matter what they threaten, you come straight to me or your mother. Deal? Charlotte nodded, then quietly. Papa, was it my fault? What happened with Mrs. Pemberton? No, none of it. But I did laugh too loud, and I did forget my coat, and I did cry during corrections. Charlotte, listen to me. William stood, came around the desk, knelt in front of her, eye level. None of that justifies what she did. Laughing is normal. Forgetting things is normal. Crying when someone's mean to you is normal. You're allowed to be a child. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to feel things. None of what happened was your fault. Her eyes filled. She blinked rapidly. I kept thinking if I'd just been tougher. Tough doesn't mean not feeling cold when you're freezing. Tough doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. You know what tough is? What you did. You endured something terrible and you told us about it. That took courage. Real courage. Charlotte threw her arms around his neck, held on tight. He felt her shoulders shake. Let her cry. Didn't tell her to be brave. Didn't tell her it was okay. Just held her. When she pulled back, she wiped her eyes. Can I tell you something? Anything. Dr. Chen says I should talk about the things that scared me most. So they have less power. Can I tell you? Of course. Charlotte took a breath. The scariest part wasn't the cold. It was thinking you'd be disappointed in me. That maybe Mrs. Pemberton was right. That I was too soft. That I'd embarrassed the family. That I'd let you down. William's throat tightened. You could never let me down. Never. The only person who let anyone down was Mrs. Pemberton. She let you down. She let us down. She failed at the most basic part of her job. Keeping you safe. Do you really mean that? Every word? Charlotte nodded slowly, processing. I think I'm ready for a new teacher now. I'll make the arrangements. She started to leave, stopped at the door, looked back. Papa, thank you for believing me, and for not making me be brave when I didn't feel brave. You were brave anyway, even when you didn't feel it, especially then. She smiled, small but real, then left. William sat back at his desk, stared at the closed door. Kate found him there 20 minutes later, still staring. She came to see you, Kate said, not a question. She wants to try lessons again. That's wonderful. She said the scariest part wasn't the cold. It was thinking she'd disappointed us. Kate sat in the chair across from him. She's 8 years old, and she was more worried about us than herself. Even while freezing, that's what Mrs. Pemberton taught her. We're going to spend years undoing that damage. Yes, but we will undo it, because we caught it. We stopped it. We changed the system. William picked up the new protocols they'd implemented. 20 pages of procedures. Checks and balances. Protections. Do you think it's enough? I think it's better. Is it perfect? Probably not, but it's better, and we'll keep making it better. The final moments of this story show why actions matter more than titles. Stay with us until the end. And now here's what happened in the months that followed. 3 months later, Charlotte had a new tutor, Ms. Rebecca Morrison, 42 years old, 20 years of teaching experience. But more importantly, she'd been through the new vetting process, extensive interviews, background checks, trial periods with observation, regular supervision, monthly reviews. And Charlotte had been part of the selection. She'd met 3 candidates, given her opinion, been told her comfort mattered most. She'd chosen Mrs. Morrison, who had kind eyes and a gentle voice and never once made Charlotte feel bad for being human. The first time Charlotte said she was cold during a lesson, Ms. Morrison stopped immediately, got her a blanket, made her hot chocolate, asked if she wanted to continue or take a break. Charlotte had stared at her, shocked. It's okay to be cold, Ms. Morrison said simply. It's winter. We're human. Let's get you warm. That evening, Charlotte told Kate about it, wonder in her voice. She didn't make me feel bad about it. She just helped. That's how it should be, Kate said gently. I know that now. Progress. Slow, steady, real. 6 months later, Charlotte laughed during a lesson, loud, uninhibited, the way children should laugh. She caught herself, tensed, waited for correction. Ms. Morrison smiled. That must have been a really good joke. Want to share it? Charlotte relaxed, told the joke. Miss Morrison laughed too. Later, Charlotte told William about it. I laughed and nothing bad happened. Such a simple thing. Something that should never have been remarkable. But for Charlotte, it was a milestone. Good, William said. Laughing is good. And don't ever apologize for joy. The changes William and Kate implemented became standard protocol, not just for their children, for all palace staff working with minors. New policies, new training, new accountability. Other royal households noticed, adopted similar measures. The conversation spread beyond palace walls, private tutors, elite schools, childcare services. One incident, one little girl sitting cold in a garden, changed how an entire system approached child safety. Not because it was the worst thing that had ever happened, but because finally someone paid attention, someone acted, someone said enough. Charlotte's 9th birthday came that spring. Warmer weather, garden party, friends from school, laughter and cake and games. William watched her run across the lawn with George and Louis, chasing balloons, shrieking with delight. Just no hesitation, no second guessing, just a child being a child. Kate slipped her hand into his. She's going to be okay. I know. We're going to be okay too. He squeezed her hand. Watched Charlotte trip, fall, laugh, get back up, completely unafraid. That was the victory. Not in Mrs. Pemberton's dismissal, not in the new protocols, not in the investigation or the consequences. The victory was in Charlotte's laughter, in her confidence, in her understanding that she deserved safety, deserved kindness, deserved to be heard. The victory was in her healing. Mrs. Pemberton disappeared from public life, quietly, completely. She never worked with children again, never made headlines, never got her day in court to defend her methods. Some people might say she deserved worse. Public shame, criminal charges, more severe consequences. But William and Kate chose differently. They chose to focus their energy on Charlotte, on prevention, on change. Revenge was temporary, healing was forever. The story could have ended there, with Charlotte recovering, Mrs. Pemberton gone, new protocols in place, a neat resolution. But there was one more moment, one that mattered. A year after that day in the garden, Charlotte had her assignment from Ms. Morrison. Write about someone who'd helped her, someone who'd made a difference. She wrote about William, not about being a prince, not about being future king, about being her father, about the day he found her in the garden, about how he believed her, about how he made sure she was safe, about how he changed the rules because she mattered more than protocol. Ms. Morrison shared it with William and Kate, with Charlotte's permission. William read it alone in his office. Got to the last line. My papa taught me that being brave doesn't mean not feeling scared or cold or hurt. It means telling someone when you do. And that sometimes the bravest thing is asking for help. I used to think I was weak. Now I know I'm strong, because my papa showed me what real strength looks like. He set down the paper, stared out the window, at the gardens where he'd found her, at the bench where she'd sat shivering. Different now, warmer, spring flowers blooming, children playing, everything changed, everything different. Because one father refused to accept that his daughter's suffering was normal. That discipline justified harm. That tradition mattered more than a child's well-being. Being royal doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Being a parent means protecting your child. No matter what protocol says. William understood both those truths. That day in the garden, father came before future king. And that was exactly what Charlotte needed. True strength isn't about enduring suffering silently. It's about speaking up when something's wrong. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about changing systems that fail the vulnerable. Mrs. Pemberton believed she was teaching resilience. What she actually taught was that Charlotte's needs didn't matter, that her feelings were weaknesses, that suffering in silence was strength. William taught Charlotte something different, that her voice mattered, that adults could be wrong, that asking for help was brave, that she deserved safety and kindness and warmth. Those lessons will serve Charlotte her entire life, not just as a royal, as a human being. If this story showed you a side of Prince William you hadn't seen before, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We share these untold stories from inside the royal family every single day. Stories about courage, about protection, about choosing love over protocol. Drop a comment and tell us. Would you have handled this the same way William did? Would you have gone further? Would you have done something different? We want to hear your thoughts. Because these stories matter. Not just because they're about royals, but because they're about something universal. About protecting children. About listening when they speak. About believing them when they're scared. About understanding that sometimes the most important thing a parent can do is simply be there, believe, act, change. William did all three, and Charlotte's life is better for it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.